Tonight, I am super excited to welcome my friend and colleague, Rachel Smith. If you're speaking, I can't hear you, Rachel. So I got to know Rachel while she was working at the Grove. And a few years ago, I took her class, Facilitating Virtual Collaboration, just as like, yeah, I think this virtual thing might be kind of cool. And that was a couple of years ago. And it was amazing, and you know, I learned so much from it. And I had one big learning from that. So after a week of working with Rachel, my one takeaway from that class was, if you can do it in the room, you can do it online. You just have to be a little creative about it. And so fast forward a little bit, I'm now teaching Facilitating Virtual Collaboration with Lori Darnell, who's also on Nova Scribes right now, or on the call with us. So, and we've got a great group. I invited Rachel here. We don't have a programmed workshop. We don't have a class. We just kind of wanted to jam. There's been so much that's happened. There's been so many changes. And I'll still go to Rachel and Rachel's blog anytime I've got a question. So I thought it'd be kind of cool for us to just talk and catch up on a few things. I've got some questions, but then what we'll do is we'll open it up to everybody and see if we can answer your questions around virtual facilitation. The other thing that I want to point out is that we actually have a couple of guest remote scribes. So Patricia Tiffany and Gary Slater are going to be remote scribing, and this is the first time they've ever done it. So from time to time, they're going to be sharing their screens. Woo, woo, they're going to be sharing their screens. And that's what's going on there, okay? So with that, Rachel, it is so nice to see you. How you been?
Thank you. Good. It's great to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me, and thank all of you for showing up.
Yeah. So Rachel, is there anything that's just like right off the bat, is there anything that's just burning for you? Is there something that's coming up for you that you just
Oh
want
my goodness. Oh my goodness. So virtual meetings, what? I mean, you know, I started looking into them and teaching about them and that kind of thing because I honestly hated meeting virtually. And I thought, well, maybe there's something that we can all do collectively to make this better. And that's really why I got into it. And ironically, just as we all got sent home to shelter in place, I took a full-time job at a big tech company. And so I was not available to do consulting and so on. But I have been amazed. The thing that is just most on my mind right now, I have been amazed at the way you guys and other people I know have just picked it up and run with it and, you know, worked it out and gotten so creative. And one of the things that I love right now is that I can go and read other people's blogs and see other people's work and learn, you know, what are other people doing that I didn't even think of. So I'm very excited that the field of practice for this has just expanded as much as it has. I'm very sorry about the circumstances in which that happened, and I certainly wouldn't have wished that overnight transition on anybody because I know that that's very painful. But I am just thrilled to see what people are out there doing. It's amazing.
Yeah. You had said that you were interested in online meetings because you hated online meetings. That's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
You know, usually we are repelled from the things that hate us. So, you know, and you were doing this before it was cool, right? So what really drew you into the idea of I'm going to really double down and create a body of knowledge around online meetings?
I think honestly what happened was there were places where for whatever reason I had to do it or it was desirable or whatever. And I'm kind of a natural teacher. So if I learn something and I notice that a lot of people around me don't know it, I tend to teach them, which is not always a good thing. That can actually be a very annoying trait that I have. But really, it was just kind of seeing that gap. It wasn't, I wish I could say, oh, well, I saw this coming and it was some, you know, really prescient view of what might happen in the world. But honestly, no, it was just, I needed it. And so I had to go figure it out because there wasn't, when I started, there was almost nothing written on it at all. Almost nobody had tried to do it. And we were still in the world of, if there were virtual meetings at all, we were looking at PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint. And And I thought, well, that's just not going to work. I mean, I was at the Grove. We do these wonderful visual things. There's no way I'm going to just, let people talk to PowerPoints. It's going to kill everything in this meeting. So it was partly necessity, and then partly my irrepressible need to teach people how to do things.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned PowerPoint. I think that's true whether you're in the room or you're online, that people think that a good meeting is driven by PowerPoint. I remember some of my first online meetings sitting there, and it was like a conference call where sometimes you might be able to see the person if they chose to turn their webcam on,
Yeah.
but it felt more like a food fight. And, and I'm not talking about like the presentation heavy, you sit back, shut up, and we're going to learn you some smarts type meeting.
Mm-hmm.
This is supposed to be a participatory decision-making process, but it felt like a food fight. So actually, I'm wondering, related to that, what is it that you like most about online facilitation? What is it? What draws you to it?
So I'm just, I'm trying to think how many times do I have to say that I hate it before it sinks in for people, but no, I'm kidding. I really like, let me say first that I also really like face-to-face facilitation. There is something about it that's very different. There's an energy. Yeah, right. And so I'm not an either or kind of gal. So I just want to get that out there so that we can just get over that and move on as a group collectively, because you can have both. Right now you can't, but normally you can have both. And the things that I like about online facilitation are I don't have to travel. Traveling is hard on your body. It's hard on your lifestyle. It's hard on your family. And I like that there are things that you can do online that are actually easier to do as a group online than they are in the room. A few things. Because everybody has their own workspace. Everybody has a complete, clear view of what's going on. And everybody can reach the board. Everybody can read the board. They can zoom it in if they need it to be bigger. The things that I'm not overly bothered by people multitasking or having a sidebar conversation. I think that's fine. If that's what people need to do at that minute, that doesn't bug me. So I like that that there's space for that to happen in a very non-disruptive way. So if somebody needs to get up and go, help their kid with something, or use the restroom, or get a snack, or have a back channel conversation because they're confused about something, they can do that without interrupting the whole flow. And I really like that too. The thing that I think interests me the most about it is figuring out how to do something. So if there's a particular process that we need to go through, or a decision the group needs to make, or whatever, I really like thinking, okay, what's going to work best for this group? What's going to get them to engage? What's their level, their technical comfort, their willingness to explore? How serious are they? How playful are they? And how can I figure out something that's going to bring them to a place where they said, wow, that was one of the best meetings I ever had. And I love that it's a puzzle, and I love that puzzle and the research about it. And it's a lot of work and it's tiring, but really you do that in face-to-face meetings too, because you want the same thing for the group. And so you spend time researching what have other people done. And, and I know some of you build giant styrofoam things. And I mean, you put a lot of effort into this. So putting that effort into a virtual one, it's not any different, it's just a different angle for your effort. But I like that puzzle of figuring it out.
Different tool. When I watch this stuff, I like to show that scene in Apollo 13 where the engineers burst into the room and they've got like all these cardboard boxes and they say,
Dump it on the table.
they dump it on the table. They say, this is all the astronauts have, right? Yeah. This is all they have to work with. And, there's urgency and pressure, and that for most of those engineers, this was like a dream come true. Like this is what they've been living for, was that moment in time. Yeah. And I think in the same way, we've got to do the same thing. It's like, okay, we don't have flip charts and stickies and Neuland markers and giant paper, but we do have Zoom, and hopefully our participants will have paper and pen in front of them, and their microphones or whatever they've got. Yeah. So how do we kind of kludge something together? If a client wants to do the marshmallow challenge, it's like, okay, well, that might be a little tricky. How do we do this if nobody has a marshmallow and spaghetti and string and all that stuff? But if
Well,
you
Second Life, but let's not go there.
yeah, okay, we could do it in Second Life. That's an option. But it's almost like you have to say, okay, well, what's the point? You know, what does the
Yeah.
marshmallow challenge do for you?
Yes.
It
Yes. And
builds,
what can we do instead that does the same, exactly, does the same thing.
right,
I want
exactly.
to interrupt for just a second and invite one of the scribes to share your scribe screen, because we want to make sure that you get a chance to do that. So whichever one of you is brave, please leap in. You're both brave. You can do this. There we go.
So cool. While
Awesome.
this
Thanks,
is
Gary.
coming up, Rachel, I've got a related question. Is there anything that you've discovered that you can only do online? Is there something that doesn't work in the room that does
Oh,
work online?
boy, that's a good question. Um, you know, I'm sure there are more things, but the thing that I'm thinking of is jointly editing a document of any kind. Because you try to do that in a room and it's just, you know, it's a mess. But you got like one person with a keyboard and everybody's standing around them, or everybody's up at a poster and they're all trying to write on the poster. And if what they're trying to do is write words, that's just going to be hard. But shared document editors have that figured out. So that's something. And I'm not suggesting that that's the best use of people's time necessarily when you bring them together, but it does answer your question.
Yeah. Well, it seems only fair to ask the inverse of that question. Is there anything that you really can't do online? Like I'd mentioned the marshmallow challenge, and you said, well,
Yeah.
you could do it in Second Life. So is there anything that just doesn't translate?
Yeah. Can't hug you guys.
You know, I had somebody say that, and it's like, well, you know, if you did have the VR thing going on, you might be able to do
Yeah,
that,
you
or
might
you
be
could
able to.
send an emoji.
Yeah, I think there are some things that you can do more easily in a face-to-face room that you can do them online, but sometimes it's too hard to be worth it. So, or you know, or even if it is worth it, it's still harder. It's still a hurdle. And one of the things is breakout groups, which obviously you can do online, but let's face it, it's harder. It requires more stumbling around. People get lost. You know, you can't see everybody. I think I have this blog post that I'm writing in my head that's not out there yet. And it has to do with what can we do better in conferences? How can we do virtual conferences better than we're doing them now? Because there are so many things that we do without thought in a face-to-face conference, like networking in the breaks. And you can't just do it without thought virtually, right? You throw a Zoom room open to 50 people and you're not going to have, it's just not going to work that way. You're going to have one person kind of talking the whole time, and maybe that's interesting and maybe it's not, but it's not the same thing as networking in the hallway. So I think there are things that we just don't know how to do yet well or easily. Yeah.
I'm keeping half an eye on chat, and I noticed Karen had a question that was related to this one. What I've not been able to recreate are those informal conversations and networking people have in the hall over meals, etc. Have any ideas around this? And I think you were just talking about that. One thing that I've been
I do
interested,
have
go
one
ahead.
idea, but go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Let's hear you.
Well, there's one that I've been playing around with. It's called, it's a tech solution, and it's called Yo Tribe. And it's a little bit weird in terms of the way that you sign up. Before they actually give you an account, you have to get 3 other people to sign up. So it feels a little like Amway
A little bit
in
of a
that
hurt
way.
right there,
Little
sure.
bit, you know, it's like, but on the other hand, it's sort of like having the first fax machine. It only works if other people have it. But, you know, and I'm trying to get enough people together to actually try this thing. But you basically can, if we're looking at the Zoom gallery view right now, it looks kind of like that, except we can drag and drop our windows around, little icons of ourselves in this big white space, and then whoever we happen to find ourselves close to, that will automatically start a breakout. So it was
nice.
designed for sort of informal networking and open
Yeah,
space.
that's cool.
Remo.co is another one that does that, but it costs an arm and a leg. I just think, you know, and it is hard because it's like sometimes you just meet people over coffee. You have these conversations of opportunity.
You want to do that, yeah. The closest thing I could think of that involved tools that we already use is to create a web page or a shared document or something that had, you know, 6 or 7 breakout room names, and then people can go there and type their name in for which one they want, and then a link to somebody's Zoom room. So you need 6 people to host different Zoom rooms. But that way you go to the shared document, you see what the rooms are, who's in the rooms, you join the one you want, you put your name and you join the one you want, and then you can switch to a different one later. And so that's it's kind of a kludge, but you don't have to sign up 3 friends for a new tool. So,
Right.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement and development there. And it looks like there's some more ideas coming through in the chat. So take a look at that if you're interested.
Mm-hmm. So Kathy says, heard about Kiko, it looks like.
Yeah.
Using the system Rachel is talking about, you can move between rooms. Gather.town is another one. And something I learned from Mateo, which has been a total game changer. This was awesome, Mateo, my man. So making everybody co-hosts and then putting them into breakouts so that they can then self-select and join. But you have to have something that they can see to say, okay, we'll break out room 1.
Yeah.
Here's what we're talking about. That's actually how we're going to do the open space later.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got another question for you. I find that there are some participants that they come into a virtual meeting and it's just like a fish to water. They just take to it. They're just in there. And then I don't know what the metaphor is, a cat to water, but there's some participants like it's like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't want to be a part of this. And it's like they're not willing to just kind of muscle their way through some of the tech challenges. One of the things that I've heard you say is we're going to be patient with ourselves and the technology. And there are some people who just don't want to be patient. So how do you manage that, the resistors?
Wow. So, I mean, I'm going to turn it back a minute before I say something, which is how do you manage the people that really don't want to be in the face-to-face meeting that you're in?
Yeah.
Because that happens too. This is my thing, right? This is my thing, is virtual meetings are not as much about the tech as we think they are. They're really about the people and the human interactions and how are we facilitating those interactions. The tech puts a layer in there that we have to deal with. But a lot of problems that seem to be about the tech are actually not at bottom about the tech. So just kind of a thing to keep in mind is that that's actually a question that we've all faced and answered in the room as well. And some of the strategies that you use in the room are going to work in the virtual room as well, up to, and there's lots of different gradients of that. There's working with that person offline, there's assigning them a buddy, kind of helping them get to the root of what the issue is, all the way up to just saying, okay, this is clearly not working for you. Let's see if we can get your feedback into this process in a different way, because you're obviously not comfortable here, or whatever, it's not working today, and that's fine. So how can we get your voice in a way that works for you?
Yeah.
I haven't had to do that very often. Most people will, at least if you meet them halfway, they'll meet you the other half. And usually if you offer them a lower tech way to get involved, they're okay with that.
Yeah, like they can't use the mural, so type your ideas into chat, something like that.
Exactly. Or I give them a buddy and, they text the buddy and the buddy puts them in, or they just say the words to their buddy and, the buddy puts them in. Lots of ways around it. Yeah.
Avril says,
but you do get that sometimes.
Avril says, regarding people's reluctance on virtual meetings, sometimes it's a case of overwhelm.
Yeah.
We're having to learn so many new things at once. Sometimes it's a case of just being super saturated, can't deal with one more thing. Okay, so this is interesting. I've had this feedback specifically around Mural, that some people get overwhelmed by the amount of content that's on Mural. And I'm wondering if you've experienced that. What do you think is going on there? It's like it just doesn't resonate with some people. It's almost like when we go into the room and there's charts everywhere.
Yeah. Except it's not, because the charts are, you can put them in your mind, you can class them as posters, and that makes them less, if you need to. If you can't interact with them for whatever reason, you can say, oh, that's a poster, that's cool, I can look at it when I need to. Whereas if you're being asked to function, to do something, and you have to interact with these sticky notes and they're flying around the screen, that can be very disorienting for some people, and I totally get that. And you can suggest things like, well, zoom in so that your field of view is smaller, so that you're only seeing a piece of it, or zoom out so you're seeing all of it, if that helps, whatever. but but that, I want to go back to that point of overwhelm, because um, that's absolutely true. Even before all this, people were overwhelmed in virtual meetings. And
Mm.
so now they're coming to virtual meetings when they'd rather be somewhere else. They'd rather be doing this a different way. They're having to learn new ways of being. The world is a terrifying place right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. And that piles on, that just adds on. And so expecting someone to be able to set that aside and suddenly be as comfortable as you are with a tool that you've been using for a couple of years, it's not going to happen. I mean, it's useful to remember, it takes 2 weeks of daily use to become comfortable with a technology tool, to the point where you can read it at a glance. And if you've ever switched email clients, you know that this is true, because for the first 2 weeks, you can't understand your email. You have trouble, you miss things. You're like, did I get a new email? Did I answer that email? How do I know if that person's responded to me? Until you can read the signals, it just doesn't make sense. So just remember that when people are coming into your virtual meetings and encountering a tool for the first time, unless they've used it daily for 2 weeks, they can't read it. It's like driving in a foreign country where all the signs are on the wrong side of the road and some of them are the wrong color. And until you learn to read those signals, it's very, very disorienting. And if you're already experiencing overwhelm, or if you already have adverse or fearful feelings about technology, it just adds on top of that, makes it worse. Plus the pressure to function in the meeting,
Right, because you're also performing. You're right there on
If you're
camera.
trying to do work, right? Yeah.
You had mentioned something at the beginning. You'd said that you were excited about all of the content that's coming out right now around good virtual meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've seen a few things that I've disagreed with. Have you?
Sure.
What are some of the things that you've seen, either mistakes that facilitators make when going virtual? Yeah.
So I'm not answering the mistakes question. I'm not calling them mistakes, because everybody's journey is different, and you try things and you learn what works and what doesn't. And also, I'm going to keep doing this, which is going to get pretty boring if it hasn't already. But if you compare different face-to-face facilitation techniques, some people do things that you yourself would never do, and it might work for them. We're all different. So what works for me might not work for you, and so I just want to start there. But there are definitely some things that I've seen that I absolutely would not do, and one of them happens fairly regularly in my work life right now, because I'm in this organization that has thousands of employees all over the world. We have meetings. The biggest shocker, this is a little digression, but the biggest shocker for me when I started there in March was that meetings are 30 minutes long. That's just, we expect a meeting to be 30 minutes long. And I went from leading, full day, multi-day meetings to a 30-minute team meeting with 9 people in it. And it was over before I knew it had started. I didn't even know what we were going to do, and then it was done. And I've become so used to it now that if somebody schedules an hour on my calendar, I actually reach out to them and say, what do you need an hour for? It's amazing what we get used to. But where I was going with this was the thing that I absolutely would not do. And I am certain in my heart that none of you do this. The number of meetings that I've arrived at, and people are there and I don't know them and they don't know me, and whoever's running the meeting just launches right in to the meeting. And we're sitting there going, I don't know who's in this room. I don't know who these people are. This is a big organization. I don't know what level they are. Luckily, I have a tool where I can go look them up. And so that's usually how I spend the first minutes of some meetings, is just looking these people up in the tool, saying, okay, where do they work? Who are they? What level are they? What can I expect that they, what have they come to this meeting to learn or to say? But that is just the assumption that everybody knows what you know, and acting that way. And it's not, these are not facilitators, these people, which is why I'm certain you guys don't do this, but they're not facilitators. And so I'm trying to kind of quietly set the example of introducing myself, getting everybody to introduce themselves, get some objectives up there, maybe an agenda. And in a 30-minute meeting, you have about 90 seconds to do that, but you can do it in that time. And that's the biggest thing that I'm seeing. And the second thing is, a lot of the meetings, half the people have their camera on and half of them don't. And that's actually a much better ratio than when we all started working remotely. when I would turn my camera on and I'm talking to 5 blank windows. You know, they don't even have pictures. It's just a name. And it's just so uneven. Participation is so uneven, even in a 30-minute meeting, because the folks who, and I'm not, if you're off camera right now, this is not aimed at you, because I also believe in people making their own choices, and that's fine. But if you're in a small meeting with like a handful of people and 3 have their camera on and 2 don't, it's just a little weird. It's just a little weird. And so some meetings I'm in and somebody will say, look, this is the time I have to eat my lunch. I'm turning my camera off because I'm eating my lunch. And that's great. That's like, okay, we get that. That's totally fine. I understand that. But the ones that it's just kind of like, no camera.
Yeah.
I'm on mute. Okay, weird. They still participate most of the time, so it's fine, but it's just strange. It's
And
like
you're lacking that human connection that you have
a
by
little
not
bit.
being able to see people.
A little bit, yeah. And I got to tell you, I used to hate having my video on. I used to do whole workshops with, in fact, Brian, I think the one you were in, we didn't use video.
Yeah, and I taught that for a long time.
That's something I've changed my mind on.
I have too. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Huh.
So I actually did this one recently where I was co-facilitating, and the facilitator was very like, everybody's going to have their webcam on no matter what, right? Like no matter what.
That's tough.
And this poor gal was you could tell because she really didn't want to, but she turned her webcam on, and she was in her closet, right? And there's like, I know, and there's like bras hanging off hangers and things like that. And I'm like,
See, you just don't know.
let's say you can webcam on if you can, right? If you really don't want to. And the thing is, this was in the early days of quarantine, and she was just looking for a quiet place. And that actually, if you think about it, that's a pretty good sound booth.
Sure.
But really didn't want to be on webcam. I
No,
think
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, related to that, I've noticed that. So there's this thing called transaction analysis. It's also called ego states, where we look at relationships between people as either relationships between adults or relationships between parents and children, right? And I find that there are, quite frankly, some facilitators and clients who will say, we got to have web cameras on because we have to make sure that everybody is paying attention. We have to make sure that people are engaged. And it occurs to me that that's a very kind of negative parent thing to do, right?
Yeah.
So
well, it's also impossible.
Yeah.
There is nothing I can do that's going to make another adult human do anything. That's on them. It's taken me decades, by the way, to learn this, but it turns out it's true. And the best I can do is create an environment where people want to do the thing that they've been invited there to do. That's the best I can do. And from then it's up to them. And I wrote a blog post, you've read it. I wrote a blog post about this years ago called Let Grown-ups Be Grown-ups in virtual meetings. And I still feel that way. It's, you can't make people do things. You can facilitate. That's what we do, right? You can facilitate what they need to do. You can enable what they need to do. But in the end, those folks have to show up and do the work. I actually had this was when I was at the Grove. I had a face-to-face meeting where the people showed up and didn't show up. They were physically in the room, but they weren't there to do the work. The meeting had not been socialized with them properly, and they weren't there to do the work. They were there for a completely different purpose, and it made I tried for 2 days. It made no difference what I did. They weren't gonna get it done. And it's in virtual meetings, it's the same. I can't reach out there and grab your hand and make you type things, nor do I want to. Good grief.
No. I'm noticing a couple of questions that are coming in from chat.
Sure.
One from Karen that she was looking for, tips for managing intros like that, going back to the quick 30-second go around, with a bigger group to keep it brief.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
Boy, that's a good question. I've done that a lot of different ways. You can do it, and if it's a really big group. So I've had a group of 75 that we did virtual sessions with, and with them it was a series. We did like 6 in a series. And so each time I would put them in different breakout groups and have them introduce themselves in their breakout group. And so each time they got to talk to somebody different. which is just like having people introduce themselves at their tables. Same thing. You can, if you have a visual or with the, you guys didn't all hear this, but some of you did, with the new Zoom 5.2.2, the host can drag and drop in gallery view, the host can drag and drop the videos where you want them and then push that view to everybody so that everybody's in the same order. So you can do a go around. Everybody's writing that down. Yeah, no, it's really cool. It just came out. So you can do a go around and everybody sees the same, you know what order it's in. I've done it before that feature. I've done it, of course, where you put up a picture and you've got people's names and you go around in a circle. And in that case, it's with a big group, it's just a matter of, 2 breath introductions. And I'm going to give you 2 breaths to say whatever you want, and then I'm going to cut you off. Something like that. And any tip that you have that works for a big group face-to-face, you can adapt it for virtual also.
Yeah. Amanda's got a good one, but before we hit that, I just want to invite our scribes to share their screen because I'd love to see what they're working on. So Amanda says, I work with a lot of shy types. Probably wouldn't know this. Rachel and I are both pretty deep introverts, but we'll skate past that. In in-person meetings, Amanda says, I've learned to allow silences to bake in the room for a while and let the shyer folks have a moment to compose a thought and speak it aloud. Silences seem way more awkward now that we're on Zoom all the time. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I actually have a method for, and Brian is demoing it right now. And Matteo, everybody who's heard me say this is demoing this right now. I have a method for allowing space for silence if I'm on camera, which is to ask the question. And once I've let the question drop, I just take a drink of something that I have handy. And people can see that you're doing that, and it sends a signal that you are not going to interrupt them and that you are just sitting there with the silence. And it's, just going to stay there until somebody breaks it, and somebody will. And silences in virtual meetings feel like they last a lot longer than silences in face-to-face meetings because you can't really, glance around very easily and see what's going on. But just breathe a few times, look out the window. What kind of day is it? Look at everybody's face individually in the gallery view. Just let it grow. Just let the silence grow. Silence is your friend. And as a facilitator, deep down, you know that. It just feels wrong virtually. But you can get to a point where that's no longer true.
Mm-hmm. I think using silence can be really powerful. Like we're going to take, there's a red team method called think, write, share. We're going to take just a minute to do nothing but think, silently think about it, whatever the issue is. And then we're going to write about it and then we're going to share. Or we're going to do, say, 2 minutes of silent reflection or 2 minutes of journaling or whatever that may be. And, force the silence. Some people are like, can you play music? It's like, no, this is good. Just be there. It's just you with your thoughts. Yeah. Kathleen says, do you rely on co-hosts to help manage the Zoom room?
Oh, whenever I possibly can. Whenever I possibly can, although it's a luxury. It's ideally you have a co-host. Ideally you have somebody whose job it is to answer tech questions, and especially in a big meeting. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's just you. But yeah, if you possibly can, definitely.
This is one of the nice things about being an independent. I insist on it. It's like if my client doesn't want me to have a buddy, it's like, forget it. This is the only way this is going to be successful.
Yeah.
If you would like me to facilitate this 200-person meeting for you, I need to have another person, Well,
I'd have 2 other people in a 200-person meeting, but yes. Yes.
I think I saw Amanda raise her hand after the last comment. Amanda, did you have something you wanted to get in? Okay, just making sure. Just those a thumbs up. All right, cool.
I'm loving watching the scribing. This is awesome.
It's really cool. Thank you for, again, first time for Gary and Patricia.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well done, y'all.
Okay, so let's, can we geek out a little bit?
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Okay, so what are your favorite tools these days? What are you liking these days? Yeah.
I am, I'm liking Zoom. I have to tell you, I started with the WebEx, Adobe Connect, like everybody else back then, and I like Zoom. And I think they're doing a really good job. I think they're listening to feedback. I think they're working to make it more secure and safer. So let's just start there. I like Zoom. I like Mural. And I will freely admit that part of the reason I like Mural is because I've used it for years and I'm familiar with Mural. I recently went and looked at a couple of other tools that are like Mural, which are also very interesting. And I have noticed something about myself, which is that I have reached the point, and I wondered when this would happen. I knew that it would. I wondered when it would happen. I've reached the point where I look at a new tool and I go, oh Lord, not again. And you know, it took me a long time to get there. Some people's paths to that point was a lot shorter than mine, but I'm there. I'm here to tell you I'm there. So if it has happened to you, you know, that's cool. It's normal. And so there has to be something special to make me want to go look at a tool. So I looked recently at no, the name is escaping me. All right, I need 1 second. Milanote, ha, got it. Milanote, Milanote. And Milanote is not the same as Mural. It's a design board. It's a way to do, if you're doing a project or something and you want to gather the different pieces, or if you're doing an inspiration kind of thing, it's good for that. You can put checklists in there, you can put links, you can put text, pictures. Yeah.
Was that the one that I saw you had done this post on color? Like there was like a
Yeah.
succulent plant and like all of
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
color
Yeah.
swatches and things? Okay.
Yeah. That's a mood board for, actually, can you just see it behind my ironing
Yeah.
board, this quilt back here? Yeah, so what I did in Milanote was a mood board to decide on the colors for that quilt. Sorry, the ironing board is right in front of it. That's the way it goes. So that's what it is. It's, if you want to see an example of it, if you go to my blog, which is digitalfacilitation.net, one of the recent posts is a review of Milanote. They contacted me out of the blue and said, hey, we'd like to give you a pro subscription if you would take a look at it and maybe add it to a list of tools somewhere. And I was so jazzed about it that I wrote a whole review. So it's actually really cool. It's, yeah, like April says, it's simple, it's intuitive, it's very clean, it's fun. It's not Mural, right? It doesn't do the same thing. It's just a tool that I happened to try recently that I like. For sticky notes, I like Mural. I've looked at Miro. And Brian, I appreciated your comments when I asked that question in the Slack group. It's a little more complicated than Mural. And one of the things that I'm always thinking about as I'm trying a tool is not, does this work for me? I mean, it has to work for me, but it's, can I bring someone new to this tool? Can I bring someone who is not used to virtual meetings here and have them use this and have them not completely, you know, freak out? And Mural is that tool for me for sticky notes so far. I haven't found a replacement. So I like that one. Trying to think what else.
What are you drawing on these days?
So I'm drawing on my iPad when I do that. And I am desperately trying, I know, I'm sorry, I'm a Mac girl, what can I say? And I'm desperately trying to switch from concepts to Procreate. And my problem is I know how to use concepts. And I have not spent the time yet in Procreate. And so I open it up and I'm like, I don't know where anything is. I'm going right back to concepts. My problem with concepts is that when you get a lot of, it's a vector drawing program if you're not familiar with it. And when you get a lot of lines in there, it slows down. And the responsiveness is still good, but occasionally the whole screen freezes while it's saving and you can't write, you can't zoom, you can't move. And that's tough when you're doing live recording, you know, that you can't have that happen. So I'm trying to switch to Procreate. And so far, I just haven't put in the time. That's honestly, that's what it is. But that's where I'm pointing people. When they ask me, where should I start? I say, start with Procreate.
Yeah.
So
I think, if I get this right, I think Patricia is actually recording on Procreate. I could be wrong, but I'd
I
love to
think
see what
it
Patricia
looked
is
like
scribing
it,
on.
yeah.
And in the meantime, while she's getting that up, let me share a link, a very old link. Actually, when I first took Rachel's class, if you've taken her class, one of the things you have to do in that class is you have to create an artifact.
Yeah.
And so I decided what I wanted to do is to get my hands around as many different tools as I possibly could. And so I started a Google Sheet, and I've shared this
I
Google
remember
Sheet
that.
with, at this point, hundreds of people who have all
Good heavens,
put
look how
in
it's
different
grown.
tools and things. And so if anybody would like to use this sheet, it's completely crowdsourced,
Oh, that's
and which means the
fantastic.
data is only as good as the data is. But it's got a list of all different kinds of tools in there. I think I got a couple hundred in there at this point. But feel free to, take a look at, I saw in chat that, for example, Stormboard and Doodly are in there. And so I've got
Yeah,
pros, cons,
yeah,
and costs. And please contribute to
awesome.
that. Keep it going.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks to
Yeah.
you. Never would have had
I
that.
I love seeing how, I mean, I remember when you first did that, and it's grown a ton since then. I just went and looked at it.
It
Yeah,
has. It has.
well done.
Is there any on the topic of tools, is there anything
Mhm.
that's coming up new that excites you? Is there anything that you've heard of that you're kind of like, this will be interesting?
I'm a little bit out of this space right now,
Hmm.
because the work that I'm doing is not graphic facilitation. I'm doing project management right now, and obviously it calls on facilitation a lot, but it's pretty much project management. And then the other thing that's hampering me is that big tech company that I work for has specific tools that we're allowed to use, and it's a pretty small list. And so going and looking at a new tool and getting excited about it is actually something I don't want to do right now, because I'll just get disappointed by not being able to use it
Yeah.
for work.
No, that's
So
very fair.
yeah, so I don't have a ready answer to that question. And and this is the other thing that goes along with looking at a good tool and going, oh, good grief, not again. The number of them that are out there
Yeah.
that I've never heard of. And when I started in this, I could name all 6 of them, and I
Hmm.
tried them all. And then the 7th one came out, and I was like, okay, I'll try that. And then the 15th one came out, and I'm like, okay, I've heard of that. And by the time it was 30, I was like, okay, I kind of at least have seen them all. No hope, no hope.
Right.
Now people are mentioning things to me that I have never heard of, which I think is wonderful. So if you find something you love, well, tell me about it, first of all. And second, excellent, good.
Yeah. And it changes. I mean, you can't,
Yeah,
I don't think you can afford to get too wedded to one tool. You have to be
yeah,
agnostic. I mean, remember when I took your
yeah.
class, we didn't use Mural, we used Board Thing, and
We
that
did
doesn't
use
even
board thing.
exist anymore.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yep, I had to move to Mural from board thing. I remember that.
Yeah. That was, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh, great. Now I gotta, ooh, this is nice.
yeah, exactly, right? But don't fall in love with your tools. Don't fall in love with your tools. Fall in love with your process, not your tools.
Yeah.
Because they change.
So speaking of working for a big company, let me ask you a couple of questions like that.
Sure.
What since everybody is working from home, what are
Yeah.
the everyday meetings like? I mean, what is it like? Let me just say this a different way.
Yeah.
If I was on a working group with Rachel Smith and we had a
Yeah.
team meeting together, like how do you show up in these meetings? Are you like, okay, are you a facilitator, or are you kind of like in there? I mean, how do you usually show up in these meetings?
Honestly, a lot of these meetings are not facilitated, and if I'm in them, there's a certain amount of I can't help it facilitation.
Hmm.
If it's my meeting. If it's not my meeting, a lot of the times I'm just, I'm not going to take over. I'm not going to say, oh, let me run your meeting for you, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to. There's a number of reasons I don't want to do that, personal and practical. But what the meetings look like is they're half an hour long. Almost always they're half an hour long. People are usually on time in this company, which is nice. That's not true in all big tech companies. And usually they're pretty focused. So we actually have one of the things that I did is set up a once a week half an hour coffee break for my team, and I host it in my Zoom, just so that we can have some time to talk to each other and not have to focus on something, because our meetings are so very focused. There's a little bit of banter, but not very much. So mostly we get in, we talk about the thing that we're supposed to do, we get out. Some meetings have an agenda. It kind of depends on who's running it and how long the meeting was planned, because sometimes your meeting was planned 15 minutes ago and it's, oh, I have this question and you guys have the information, so I need to ask you a bunch of questions. So there's a lot of that. The team that I'm on does a lot of, our interdependence is low mostly.
Hmm.
So we're all working on different projects. We're a team of project managers working on different projects. So our team meetings are just kind of, okay, what's going on? Where are you stuck? Can I help you? Can you help me? Who do I talk to get this thing moving forward? And so they're very practical and kind of focused like that. The project meetings that I do, I spent the first several months gathering information. So it was a research project at first. So I did, pretty formal interviews where I would ask a set of questions and write down all the answers and, go through the data. And so those were pretty straightforward meetings also. Our all hands meetings are still pretty webcasty. And that's interesting. I got pulled in after it was discovered that I have some facilitation experience. I got pulled in on the planning of an all hands, and what I discovered was we don't really want to experiment here. We want this to be really smooth. We want to look really good, and we want to take questions through the Q&A in Zoom, and we want to do a webcast using slides and one person talking, and that's just what we want to do. And so I said, super, you got it. That's cool. And you're on this, and I'm not really needed here. I did scribe, but not on camera. I scribed personally on my iPad and shared it with my team. And the next thing I know, it had kind of gone viral because people were just like, the biggest question I got was, what software did you use to create this? Because they thought I had, they thought it was a design piece that I had just pulled in. Yeah, because they'd never seen it before. They didn't know what it was. They had no frame of reference for it. Yeah, so is it a risk-averse culture? No, not really. A lot of, especially the group that I'm in, a lot of what we're doing is fairly risky. But the higher levels of management do not want to screw around with their meetings. They don't have time. They don't. And also the purpose of those all hands is to communicate information out. So it's a perfectly usable format if that's what you want to do. Yeah, exactly. So let's not make it something that it's not. Let's not force it to be something that it's not. One of the things that was hardest for me was I joined March 2nd, and I was in the office for onboarding on March 2nd, and I was in the office by myself on March 3rd because other people were at home doing things. And I came in on March 4th, and my boss's boss came over and said, go home, don't come in. We're not working here anymore. And I've been at home ever since. And so I have never been in the same room with most of my team. And and that's another reason I did the coffee hour, because I'm just like, who are you people? I'd like to know who I'm working with. And it's been slow. It's been a lot slower getting to know people than it would otherwise have been,
Yeah.
And that's the reality for a lot of people. And I guess this is what I would say is my takeaway for those of you who are external facilitators who are not embedded in a company, is that these people you are working with are turned upside down. They don't know what's going on. None of their structures are there. None of their social or work structures are there. They're having to reinvent how they do their work, just like you are. And so if they show up and they are frustrated and they are not wanting to do things and you're getting a lot of pushback, it's hard. It is hard to get stuff done out there. I'm lucky that I work in a tech company where everything we do is online anyway. There's almost no paper in this company. And so we can shift a lot of stuff online, but it took us a while to get in the swing of it. Yeah. And people are still extremely disoriented.
I think let me say this. You went from the Grove to
very close, very paper. Yeah.
It's like, if I had to different companies, that's pretty wild.
They're very different. They're very different companies. Yeah.
And I like what you said about
values,
that you had set up those coffee hours. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, well, it's a half hour because our meetings are half an hour. Yeah. But I just the culture is very calendar driven. So if you and this was something that was hard for me to learn at first too, because I would email someone and say, hey, I'd like to set up a half an hour with you to talk about this. Is that okay? And they don't answer that because they've got 50,000 emails and nobody's going to answer that, And it turns out that what you do, which I learned pretty fast, is you put a half an hour on their calendar, and in the invite you say, this is about XYZ. And then you hope that they show up. There actually, people do use the respond, the accept or decline or maybe. They use that pretty consistently, most people. And so you get a sense of, are these people going to come to the meeting? Are they going to actually be there? So what I did for the coffee hour is I just I just made a half an hour meeting and I said, team coffee optional. And I invited everybody and I made it recur every week. And every week different people come, depending on their workload, depending on how much they want to talk to us, to one another or whatever. And we just early on, we didn't institute a rule that it's not about work, because sometimes it is about work, because sometimes it's useful to just sit with someone and say, wow, I'm stuck on this thing, can we just talk about it for a minute? But a lot of the time it's not about work, and it's where it's perfectly acceptable to just waste that half hour talking to each other. And it's been really helpful for me and for my other teammates, even the ones who knew each other better before. But it's just a moment, and it's right in the middle of the week. It's 1 o'clock on a Wednesday, and you can kind of say, how's your week going? Is it a good week? Is it a scary week? Is it what's how are you feeling right now?
Yeah.
And
it occurs to me that
been
might
good.
be one of those ways that you can have some of those conversations of opportunity, those ad hoc, connecting with people.
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
think
and we
this
do.
is probably a good time to point out one of the things that Rachel Thompson is really good at is that she sets up these things called Let's Lunch virtually through Nova Scribes,
Awesome.
and they're free to attend. They're just out there, and we sit down, we turn on our computers and we eat in front of each other. But we also, and so there's no shame there. But
Yeah,
it's just a time to kind of connect with people who are
that's great.
in the industry with each other.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
that's
we've got
awesome.
one coming up too. So I have one more question for you, and then I think we
Oh,
should switch things up a little bit and open it up to more
you got
questions
it.
from the folks here. Um, I think that this is, I mean, we know that this is a weird time. I'm not going to restate all of the things that are out there about, well, this is so
It's
different.
good. Let's just get tense.
From your perspective regarding working virtually, um, what do you hope are the lessons that people learn as a result of this? What are the tropes that have been disproven? What do we take with us from this?
Yeah. Um, one is one thing that I hope people are learning is that it's not actually all that much harder than meeting face to face. Once you get your tool set and your processes in place, it is learnable. It is boundable, and you can say these are the things that I do, and then outside of that are things that I don't do, and I don't have to care about all of it. And so just coming to realize that it's not exponentially harder than doing things face to face. And a second thing that I hope people will take away is it's not worse than doing things face to face. It's different. And certainly we miss some things that we could do, that are, especially people who are more extroverted, or who really get energy from being in the room with other people. Yes, okay, there's stuff that you're missing there, and I get that, but it's not automatically worse. It's not automatically a step back from anything else. And then the third thing is just that you can do it, that we can do it, that this is a thing that we're capable of continuing to work and to function and to make progress and to have discoveries and to connect and to move forward using these spaces and these tools, as unusual as they are, maybe as different as they are, but we can do it. We can just get out there and make it happen when we need to, which is one of the amazing things about people, is that we can do that.
Amazing. Thank you, Rachel.
I thought of just really quickly an answer to an earlier question that you asked, which was something that you can do in a virtual setting that you can't do face to face. And it's you can make eye contact with everybody at once.
Oh yeah, good call. That's really
Right.
not in a creepy way, but yeah, that's cool.
Right, right.
Actually, I did have this one student who was like, Brian, you say to look at the camera. I've gotten some feedback that it kind of freaks people out. I'm like, okay, maybe like
Look
every
at the
now and
camera,
then, just kind of
right?
look up and down. You don't have to stay
Oh,
like glued onto it.
right.
I love that. All right, so here's how I'd like to do this, if this is okay. This will be an experiment because I haven't done it with a group this large, but here's how I'd like to do this. If you have a question, I'm going to invite you to take yourself off mute. Don't start talking. I'll have my eye on the participants window, And when I see somebody go off mute, I'll call on you and then you can start talking. And the reason I'd like to do it this way is because then you can just start talking. You don't have to find your way to the unmute button. Okay, great. And I'll do it in this order. So we'll start with Sameh. Sameh, what do you got?
Yes, hi. In fact, I thank you so much first, Brian, for arranging this. Was helpful, even for analytical person like me. So what I think we are now in a place where we have everyone distributed. It's not like necessarily a virtual meeting where maybe we have a conference room, 3-4 people here, there is 2 people there, and someone connected from remote. But everyone works from his home, so it becomes like a democratic way of connection.
Yeah.
There is no advantage of any person on the other. So I find that probably these things this setup can make things a little bit easier than normal virtual room, because everyone now have equal chance of connection.
That's a really good point. And one of my favorite things about what has happened is it's gotten rid of blended meetings, because blended meetings are tough. I mean, they are tough. And as you said, everybody has equal access. Everybody has equal representation. Yeah, it definitely levels things out. Great point.
So I guess my question here, how's this change the way you do virtual meeting, given this understanding is there? Because there are some companies like WordPress, for example, for years, they have been fully distributed. There is no office, people work from home only, and they were very successful. And when the pandemic happened, nothing have changed really. They already operate this way.
Yeah, look at them. I used to push back pretty hard on blended meetings to begin with. So that was something when a client wanted that I would try to talk them out of it. And I'm glad that it's a non-issue now. So, I think that's good. I think I would, until we have better tools to manage blended meetings, I would continue to push back on them, even if we all return to our offices, because it's so much harder. It's so much, Brian.
Yeah, I got something on this. So I posted a link in chat of a blog post that I wrote, and I used as strong a language as I could. The title of it was titled "Don't Do Blended Meetings," and the reason for it is that, to your point, if you have a group of people that's together and then other people who are online, you are building in exclusion into your process. And there is no team in the world where the trust is high enough where you could do that. All it takes is for one person to lean over and whisper something to the guy next to him in the room, and for everybody else to see that and be like, wait, what was that? Right? How come I didn't get to hear that? They have to.
People can't help doing it. Yeah.
So we're seeing this right now. So a few of the school systems, my kids included, we're trying to do the blended approach where they have, some kids in the classroom, some virtual. And I got to tell you, it's not working right now.
So hard.
By the way,
we don't have the tools to support it.
That blog post generated more hate mail fired at me than anything else I have ever written. I mean, I had personal attacks thrown at me. Oh yeah, people hated that post, and I was like, okay, I hit a nerve. That's awesome. Yeah. So this is something Rachel and I agree with. Do not do blended meetings. It's a disservice to yourself and to your participants. It automatically sets people up for exclusion.
It does. If I did have to do a blended meeting as a facilitator, I would remove myself from the physical group so that I was one of the remote people, because that way I can at least make sure that the remote people, that we're having the same experience as I am, and they're not missing out on any of me.
Right.
Yeah.
I noticed that Shai had gone off mute before. Shai, do you still have a question?
Question, comment? It was supposed to be a question. I was more just like a reaction.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Which was just that I think I've been thinking a lot about this because our workplace has at different times, based on what we're hearing in the news, thought about going, maybe some people go back, maybe we'll have a hybrid and all of this. And even though I'm like kind of old-fashioned, like to be in the office kind of guy, I've taken it in through this process of learning virtual facilitation this point about don't do blended meetings and been pretty adamant that like we have to think about when we start bringing back people in, that if we can't bring everybody who physically is in the city, there's some people who aren't in the city and that's a different story, that we really got to think about the impact of that I wouldn't have made such a case until now. And then the other reaction I have has to do with in the this is a strange situation, but let's say you were in a hybrid and you had to do like an all staff meeting. Would you really then just have everyone do it on Zoom, even if they're sitting in different cubes or in different desks? Because I think one of the worst things about a hybrid meeting, and when I'm working with people doing one-on-one training about like Zoom presence and all that stuff, like having that camera in the back corner of the room and seeing like 12 people, but you don't see their faces. That point that Brian made about being able to see people's faces is actually I think it's been a huge asset to be able to look people in the eye and to be able to see facial expressions in a way that I think like you'd miss if you had like one group en masse and a bunch of people you can see up close. So those are my I don't know if they're questions as much as just thoughts that I'm having because of you all.
If the staff meeting were anything other than a one-way information communication channel, then yes, I would ask people to connect individually from their desks.
Cool.
David, I noticed you went off mute.
Yeah, I wanted to just break a barrier. People are saying we can't have water cooler conversations anymore. And
There you go.
Awesome.
We can all start talking now.
Now we're having one. That's great. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions, comments, queries, posers, ideas? What else?
I have one more, Brian. It's
Yeah.
more around, I'm wrestling with a lot of people who are talking about having the multi-screens now in their office. Like now we have a screen for my slides, we have a screen for the Zoom, we have my Sketchbook Pro, and I don't know just be curious to know what people's thoughts are around that. I'm kind of struggling internally with like, do I go in that direction? Do I need to? Is it really going to be an add value to me as a facilitator? So, Lori turned out yes.
Tell me more about the context of, describe this more because I'm not sure I'm following.
Well, I just was on one of these Nova Scribes this week, and the woman who is a graphic person, I forget her name, she said, I have my robot set up, and she had 4 screens, and she was showing us. Yeah, she was just showing us like that she could really concentrate and be present with the people on the video, but then she could be present to the slide. She could also be present to mural, and if she was going to, and I thought, oh, I'm wondering about that as the way to go, and so just.
And Lori had an emphatic yes. Lori, do you want to?
Lori was like nodding her head up and down just now. Yeah.
And not to pick on you, but
I was on a meeting the other day with a friend of mine who's kind of he's actually the mentor of a spiritual circle that I'm part of, and he does a lot online. He's just a tech guy, silly to it, and he made the comment because of course he has a giant screen and then a smaller screen, and he says, "Oh, of course, I put all the people on the really big screen and I put my content on the little tiny screen." And he says, because then that way I catch more nuances of, how people are moving and, the colors and their looks in their faces. Yeah, there we go. And but I sort of thought, oh my God, I'm a Myers-Briggs. I'm still a Myers-Briggs T to the core. I'm like, the people on the small screen and the content on the big screen. And it was a mind blower to me. And I realized just how important it is. Like I was watching a recorded video Zoom call the other day. And I found myself just making eye contact with the recorded people, this back and forth between the content and really connecting with recorded people. And there were a bunch of recorded people. They're not, caring whether I make eye contact with them. So I think that having more screens, it's kind of like if you were facilitating in a room think about how much you use your peripheral vision.
Yeah.
You know, you're watching for those, you know, sort of shufflings in the chairs and the side, and
Yeah.
people glancing at a previous chart and things like that. So I think that more screen space gives you more bandwidth to understand people. And then there's also the practical aspect of, you know, I've got my next thing teed up on my screen, and I'm not worried about losing it behind layers,
Right.
which, I mean, how often has that happened to us? You know, where did that go? You know,
You know, also, Lori, it's like two things on this. It's like the Wall Street traders version of a facilitator. You know how they all have multiple screens with like the trades going on. I think we kind of might need that for the way we're connecting. And the other piece, I think the woman I was watching Tuesday night, and again, her name's escaping me, she had a lot of physical freedom and a lot of, you know, so the embodiment that you can do with multiple screens, I think leaves you that, you know, freedom that you don't get without maybe as many.
I'd like to speak to this one just a little bit. So on the first hand, and I saw kind of Jenny sort of shimmying back and forth as you were mentioning that. Something that I absolutely agree with Brandy on is that I stand when I facilitate. It does a few things for me. On the one hand, I can use my body language more. I can my expressions are a little bit more, so I have more freedom of movement. The other thing that I've noticed, well, and actually two other things. First of all, it doesn't compress my diaphragm. I feel like I have kind of a quiet voice and I need to compensate for that. So by standing, I'm able to project more. When's the last time you saw a choir that was seated? They're always standing, and there's a reason for it, right? And then the third and really the final reason, and it's a selfish one, I find that if I'm standing, my energy is a lot higher at the end of the day. If I've been sitting all day, I feel like I'm just drained by the end of the day. And so if I'm standing, my energy is higher, and I feel like now I've got my facilitation shoes on, right? Because I would always stand in the room. So I feel like a facilitator that I'm standing. The other thing is back to your point, David, about the amount of real estate that you have on the screen. So I mean, I'm a real estate hog. So I have this giant monitor here, and then I've got my Cintiq over here. So I can see what's coming. I've got something else. I've got, you know, and I do the thing where I can see as many people as possible. And I have that as close to my webcam as I possibly can so I can keep eye contact on it. So I don't have that weird disconnect like right now. It's like, oh, well, Brian's not looking at us. Well, I am.
Yeah.
It's just my webcam's over here, right? By the way, I have to tell this story about this particular monitor. So there's two people that I go to for like tech and gear advice. One of them is Muddy Schlegel. And if I could get somebody to look up his link, because he does this thing where you get an hour of time with him and he will hook you up with regards to like your remote scribing, you know, your gear side of things. It's totally worth it. I had an hour with Muddy and now I can graphic facilitate full scale. The other guy is Dean Myers, and he is also on the Zoom call right now. Here, Dean, I'm going to stop talking for a second just so you can say hi. We'll see your picture. Okay, cool. Maybe. All right, I'm spotlighting Dean, whether you want to or not. There you go. Okay, so that's Dean Myers. I'm going to stop that for a second.
Here I am.
So I asked Dean. I said, "Hey, Dean, I'm in the market for a monitor. What do you recommend?" And he sends me this link on Amazon, right? So I was like, okay, it's a little expensive, but I need a good monitor. I hit click, right? About a week later, my wife is like, "Hey, what the hell? Did you order a new refrigerator?" And I go out to the front step, and like there's a refrigerator box on the front step. I'm like, "What in the world is this?" It was the monitor.
It slices. It dices.
Right. I just clicked.
It's a floor walks and
so ask Dean for any gear, but watch it because he'll give, you know, in this case, it's like a mile long.
Wait, Brian, how many pieces of gear are you wearing or using?
Like right now, yeah, the Cintiq
right
is
now.
Formerly Dean Myers, right? He sends it to me. So Dean, yeah, he's amazing.
And what's on your head?
Oh yeah, this is the other thing. This is incredible. Hold up. So this is really cool because I've got 4 kids. They're super loud, right? And you know, I needed something that would get rid of ambient noise. So Dean hooked me up. Now my kids have been floating around in the background behind you here. You know, we're getting ready for a camping trip. Okay, see that? We've got our tent set up. So they've been running around in the background. I don't think you can hear them, but it's an, what is it, an Audio Technica headset, but it's a professional headset, and it's not noise canceling, but it does get rid of, so far, 100% of the background noise.
It's
Dean is the
meant
guy.
for sports broadcasters. That's why it's not noise canceling.
Or helicopters, who knows, right? So yeah. All right, I'm seeing a couple of people come up. David, you're still off mute. Did you still have a question? You
No,
good?
just excelente.
Cool. Any other questions pop up? It does look like a helicopter headset, but you know, it's not cool, but I've decided to project
I have,
coolness onto it.
I don't know if you can you see mine. I've got
Oh yeah,
my,
she's got an amazing one. Hang on. Why don't you talk about yours?
They're not designed for this, but I use them because they're so comfortable. They come in a little case like this. It's the Bose Sound Sport. I think it's the Sound Sport 2, possibly.
I think you told me it was a Sound Sport free. Is that right?
Sound Sport free. Thank you. Yes, and I got them for workouts. They're designed for sports, actually, and I'm not wearing the other one because you only need one for something like this, but I wear two when I'm listening to music or working out, and they hang in your ear and they're super comfortable. I have one set for my personal use and one set for work, and they charge in their case when you put them in their case, and it's, you know, with my hair, you can't even tell if I sit like this. You can't even tell I'm wearing a headset, and I forget that I have it in. It's so comfortable. So I really like them. Battery life is pretty good. The pair that I've got here is getting on in years. I've had it for a couple of years now, and so the battery lasts about 3 hours, and then I have to charge it for 10 minutes, and then it's ready to go again. So really like them. Mm-hmm.
Mateo was wondering if they're better than AirPods.
You know, for me they are, because I have never been able to wear the Apple in-ear anything because they're not shaped for normal ears. I don't know how people wear. I just don't get it. It's so painful. I put them in and 2 minutes later my ears hurt. Yeah. And these are so comfy, which is why I went this way.
Okay, Rachel, I got something for you then. Have you tried the AirPod Pros? They're more expensive.
No.
Okay, so the thing is with the AirPod Pros is that they have these detachable like insets, and when you plug them into your ears, you do this audio test, and it says, yeah, you got the wrong one in. Put this one in, right?
Ah.
So as you're using it, it'll say, you know, here you have to size up or size down.
Nice.
That's
nice.
Cool.
That's cool.
That was a birthday present, by the way. So they are expensive.
Yeah, these ones have the part that goes in your ear is this little wing, and it's kind of a soft, flexible, whatever, and you just fit it in there and give it a little twist, and it stays.
We're turning into cyborgs. Lori, what do you got?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do another Dean Myers. He doesn't even know that this is coming from him. It comes to me from Dean to Aaron Gordon, right? And she said, you know, I did this whole thing where Dean was the producer, and he sent everybody these little lapel pins.
Oh yeah.
And you know, so for $23 on Amazon. Now I'm experimenting with this little lapel pin, and then I have my own studio space working at home, so the only thing I have to worry about is my cat, and so it's, you know, I don't have to be muted with children and all the rest of that stuff. But so far that you know, of course you can never hear yourself, but I've been asking everybody, how do I sound? How do I sound?
Sound good. Yeah.
Does it sound good?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the other end of the scale.
It's a bargain for $25.
Hey, look at that. And Andrea was just showing one, but I didn't catch the name of it. Is that a lapel mic as well, or is that an in-ear?
No, this is a lapel mic.
Mic.
It has an awesome, really long cord. So it works really well, even if you're like Brian and you need to stand up and move around.
Yeah, nice. Very cool.
I'd love to see from our scribes, if you don't mind turning on your shared screen. I'd like to see how it's going. And while they're doing that, why don't we open it up to see if there's any other questions? Dean, what's going on for you?
I don't have a question, but I wanted to sort of reach out and let people know I've been experimenting with remote VR facilitation for how long?
Mm-hmm.
For eons, right? And
Mm-hmm.
tried different things. And there are a few things in the last 6 months, particularly, that seem to be sort of stepping up to the plate. One was called Spatial.io. They're okay, but I just couldn't make the connection really hardcore with them about it. And there were certain things about the platform that were just absolutely odd. Like you were stuck if you watched on the web version. It kept rotating back and forth, whether you liked it or not. So it's like you get seasick. But the HTC Vive people, kind of by accident, took an in-house product that they used for themselves, and they said, "Oh, we should put this out there." So it's called Vive Sync, and it is it's in beta, so they're not charging for it at this point, and the meeting space is limited to 25 per room, but you do actually create rooms. I mean, it acts like we want it to act. So I've made a connection with them directly, and I set up a meetup under my meetups, which is Visual Thinkers Way. I did kind of post it around a little bit, but if you have right now, it's working with all the Vive headsets, and hopefully I'm setting up the meeting for October 1st, and I'll put the link in here if you don't mind. They're going to have all the Microsoft XR headset controllers. Hopefully will be up and running for 2. It'll work. They're still in conversation with Facebook to try and get the Quest on it. And it will work, although I think it's going to be a little odd. It works on web VR, meaning it's flat, and it works on mobile. So it has the basics, meaning people meet in the room, and it has a sort of auditorium seating. It has big presentation, and they cooked up this thing where you can actually have a local tablet. So as you're in the meeting, you can do your own note taking and whatnot, and you can watch the presentation if you don't want to deal with your glasses and all in VR. And it has at least a pencil. So it's the miniest, tiniest version of Tilt Brush, but you have a pencil that works, and I'm pressing on them hard. So
Nice.
And I'm also trying to prove the case that we will use it. You know, usins who are virtual facilitators, we'll put it to use. You know, let us be the experimentation place. So I'm really, it's nice to see so many people here, 33 people here, and I don't know how many of you have those headsets are all, but I just want to sort of keep the flame going, because I don't, post-COVID, quote unquote, if there ever will be a post-COVID, I don't think it's going to change. I don't think the landscape is going to change. As Rachel, you said at the very beginning, if we've shifted into doing this and we realize after practice, there's not a lot of difference. There's not a lot of things we can't do or can't adapt to get the same results, right? So,
there's a thing that David Sivit said a number of years ago, and I think he was dead on, which was that face-to-face meetings are going to be for special, very special things. And I think that's the direction that we're going to head. I think he's absolutely right about that. And I think this accelerated that happening. But, after this, how many people are going to want to drive 90 minutes for a 1-hour meeting?
Right.
Why would I do that? That makes no sense at all. And as you say, we've learned that we can do this. So I think that there is still going to be a place for those face-to-face meetings, but they're going to be the really special ones, the ones where there's something that we can do much better by being together somewhere to do it.
Yeah. Rachel, you've heard of Tilt Brush before, right?
Yeah, I've used it. It's awesome.
I
Hey, there I am using Tilt Brush.
And you look so happy there.
That grin is real. It was just magic. It was absolutely magic. I can't believe you dug that picture up from somewhere. That's amazing.
I have detailed files. Okay.
Yeah, apparently so. I'm getting worried now.
Rachel Thompson says, I do think we need to balance need for the room energy exchange and the power of virtual connection. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Rachel, T, what do you got?
Well, that's just something I realized that, I do a lot of virtual stuff and actually really enjoy it. But I think that, it's figuring out like what is the most powerful thing that needs to do in the room. And I think, going back to the informal connecting, like the really informal connecting and like that kind of being very social and building bonds that way, I think is what will need to happen. And I do think that like once people can go back, I think that we'll have like a rush of, oh, let's do all the meetings in person, just because people, that's how they can articulate that to a way to fill that need. But I think as a facilitator and as maybe a leader in this new world, like figuring out how to meet this need that is social, to be like in proximity, like physical proximity with other people that we have as humans, and disconnecting that from like we all don't need to sit in a room and look at a PowerPoint on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are two separate things. Like this is not communication, this is social bonding, and figuring out how to separate those, which I think this is like a forced way to do that. But yeah, no, it's just I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rachel. Rachel Smith, I'm wondering if it's okay to talk a little bit about your Slack group. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah, if people don't know about it, we would love to get you in there. So at the beginning of this sudden rush to be virtual, I set up a sort of a Slack support group for facilitators, teachers, and others who suddenly found themselves having to cope with being virtual. And it's a pretty, low-key place. People drop in and ask questions and answer questions for each other every now and then. Over time, we got a couple people in there, like there's somebody from Mural, there's somebody from Microsoft Teams, like who actually works there, who drops in and answers questions about those particular things. So if anyone wants to join that, Brian and I can both add you. So I would say drop one of us an email and we would be delighted to add you, unless you have a better idea, which you probably do.
Well, it's not that. You're not going to like this, actually, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. So one of the things that Rachel impressed on me when she asked me to help with this Slack thing, she said, all right, we want this to be like by invitation only, okay? So like we have to, it's got
kind of what I said.
Well, so here's sort of what she said. So here's what I decided to do. So I created a Google Sheet, okay? If you care about this enough to navigate your way into that Google Sheet, scroll all the way down to the bottom of it and put in your name and email address, I will make sure that you get an invite.
Thank you.
But you have to climb the mountain before you talk to the guru. So that's how we're going to do this.
The Google Sheet's in the chat. And it's not that I wanted it to be by invitation only. It's that I didn't want it posted on social media where we would get a bunch of trolls in there who would just make it completely worthless. That's the point. Anybody who wants to be there is absolutely welcome. And once you're in, you can actually invite other people, and that is A-okay. So I don't need to approve it. If it's somebody that would benefit from it, invite them in. I just don't want to have to mediate and.
Man, I've been making people give me their social security numbers, dates of birth, credit card information.
Okay, so I've learned something about
You're way
giving
too
you
easy.
power.
Okay.
Yeah, but by all means, please join, say hi, ask questions if you have questions. We drop in at different times and different people answer them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Rachel and I do not believe in is the law of gaseous meetings, which is to say they expand to fill the space that they're given.
Definitely not.
if we're
done,
coming to
done.
kind of a natural closing point, we can go ahead and stop. But if there's anything else that you want to talk about, please feel free to go off chat or go off mute, type something in the chat. We'll be
Mhm.
sure to get it in there.
And if you are done, if this is your moment, thank you so much for coming. Please feel free to slip on out. If you want to stay, stay. Yeah.
Chris,
Really
I noticed you went
appreciate you
off
guys all
mute. Did you
coming.
have something?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about, it sounds like most people use iPads, but what other tablets do?
Over to you, Brian.
Thank you. All right. I am not a Mac person, kicking and screaming. So I prefer a Cintiq. Again, secondhand from Dean Myers. He gives me the coolest stuff. So this is a 22-inch Cintiq monitor. It has something crazy like 50,000 points of pressure on it. And I really prefer, if I'm going to do any scribing, I prefer to do it in Photoshop, actually, because you know your tools, and that's what I grew up using. So it's easy for me. And I will tell you that these days, I feel like I'm a dying breed. Most people are moving over to the iPad Pro and Procreate. That's getting a lot of energy right now.
And I have used the Cintiq also, not that one. The one I used was a much earlier generation. And it is a great tool. You can use it with a Mac or a PC, but it's a great tool.
David Sibbett still now his thing is the little portable Cintiq.
Oh, he got one of those?
Yeah, which is about the size of an iPad.
Uh-huh.
But I'm an iPad kind of gal. And I'm like, do I spend all that money on a Cintiq that basically just doesn't do anything but draw on the wall, virtual wall? Or do I get an iPad and I can, watch, Star Trek Picard on it as well, and put my paper-like screen thing on it? And
I have one of those too. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, so
if you use an iPad, the thing that Lori just mentioned, if you don't know about it, it's called Paper-like, and it's a cover that you put over the screen, and it gives you a little bit more texture, like writing on paper. It makes it less slippery. Yeah.
Can I ask a question, Brian?
Please, yeah.
So I've got a couple of gaps left on my capture, so I need you to just give me some more stuff.
Oh, talk more. Okay.
I just need one or two things, and it's all going to be wonderful. So just two nice small little capture points would be wonderful. Thanks. I've captured Dean Myers as awesome for all things headset and other types of tablets are available from iPads if you choose to use them. I've got that. So yeah.
Sure. If it's okay, I actually, when I was taking the class with Rachel, I wrote down like everything that she said, just because I don't know if you've noticed, Rachel has got this voice. It's like chamomile tea. It's just like, everything's going to be okay.
That's your right to
Rachel's
sleep.
here. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's calming. It's soothing. It's fantastic. And she has amazing language. So here's some of the language that I picked up from her. Okay, we're going to be patient with each other and the technology. This is not like a telephone where it works 99% of the time. A lot of these tools are in the cloud. There's connectivity issues. There's updates. I always go into these sessions with, I wonder what's going to break today. I'm surprised when nothing breaks, or I get my curiosity rewarded. People have various degrees of comfort with the technology. So we're going to be patient with each other and their comfort with the technology.
I'm big on being patient. Thank you.
How's that, Gary?
That was too fast.
I'm sorry.
Do the pace track. So I got the wonder what will break today, and everything will be okay.
Those are the best ones. Honestly, you got 90% of it. Yep.
I want that patient thing though. If you could just implant that in my brain, that would also be really good.
Yeah, let me give it to you again. So I go into these with an attitude of wonder, as in I wonder what's going to break today. And when something breaks, my curiosity is rewarded. And when nothing breaks, I'm pleasantly surprised.
And every time something breaks, you learn something.
Mm-hmm.
You learn how to deal with it. You learn what to do next time or what not to do next time.
Yeah, it's almost like something's broken. Yay, I get to learn something new,
Yeah. My most exciting meeting that really tested that philosophy of mine was a workshop I was facilitating, and we were somewhere in the middle of the session, and PG&E was doing some work in my front yard, the Pacific Gas and Electric, and they severed my internet connection. Just gone, just like that. And you know, you're not getting that back in a hurry. And I had a backup plan like you always do, and I have stacked backup plans. So what if I lose this app, or what if I lose this, my battery dies on this. And there is one for what if I lose all internet connectivity, that is there. And so we went to texting. I just texted everybody and said, I have no more internet, so we're going to wrap up that one thought, and we're going to adjourn and reschedule because there's nothing else I can do. Because that was literally all I had left. And that doesn't feel good when you do that to a client. That doesn't feel good.
No, but it's like, this is when we're contracting at the beginning. Sometimes your clients don't necessarily want to contract for all of those backups within backups within backups. Yeah. And I try to get them to say, okay, what happens if Mural breaks? And Mural has broken from time to time. I've gone to Mural and it hasn't worked that day.
Yeah.
And, yesterday, was it yesterday? It could have been the day before, but Zoom had this massive outage, right? And I think it had something to do with all the kids going back to school. I'm not sure, but I think that's what it had to do with. And they had posted on their website and all that sort of thing. So sometimes your clients don't necessarily want to contract you to build those backups within backups within backups. And if they don't want to do that, I say, okay, then we're going to use baseball rules, which is if it rains, we're not having a game. If it breaks so hard that there's nothing that we're going to do about it, we're just going to regroup over email and we'll have to reschedule. Yeah.
And you know what? It's not the end of the world.
Nope. And there are Zoom hijackers, said Chris. That's interesting.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, make sure you're using your passwords, please, with Zoom. All y'all. Yeah. It's worth it.
All right. I would love to see what our scribes have come up with. Whoever would like to go first, Gary, Patricia.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And then maybe we'll come to a close.
Sounds good.
Patricia, you go first.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm trying to. You're right, Rachel. Concepts is lagging.
Did you switch over into Concepts? Because you didn't start in Concepts.
I did start in Concepts.
You did start in Concepts.
Procreate.
Okay. Yeah, it gets to a point where it just decides that it's most important that it saves your work. And while I'm all about that, it does it at awkward times sometimes. Awesome.
That's so cool.
That is so cool.
I love how you did the title.
Yeah, I would love it if you could post an image to this in the event photos, so we can save this. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
What was the experience like for you, Patricia? How did it go? First time doing remote scribing?
It was a little bit stressful, especially at the beginning, because I didn't know what was going to happen, but eventually it worked out.
Cool. It looks gorgeous. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Gary, you want to show yours off?
Aye. You getting that?
Awesome.
Oh, I love the picture of Dean Myers. That's great.
So just a lot of what you said resonated because I was learning Autodesk Sketchbook and I was really, really comfortable in that. My iPad loved it. And then everyone else has been talking about Procreate. So about 3 weeks ago, I jumped over to Procreate.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought a good way to learn was to offer to scribe this. And then I realized the irony of being willing to scribe for you and Brian. It's like, what on earth? But actually, it's been really cool.
It's
so
wonderful.
I'm really grateful. So thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you did this, especially considering how late at night it is for you. Thank you so much for staying up to do this.
That's cool.
I love the upside down, everyone's now upside down.
There's your star people. And I
Yep.
agree with Kathy. That's a great flow that you've got going through that. It really
Yeah.
provides good structure to that. It's very easy to follow. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Cool.
Yeah, please post that one too.
Well, what do you think, Rachel? Are we at a kind of a natural stopping point? You want to call it a night?
I think so. I'm good unless anybody has anything else they want to say or ask, but
Okay.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much. Just give me a
it's
week
been
or
a
so and
pleasure.
I'll get the video up there. And
Sure.
Rachel, this has been a real pleasure. It's always great to
I've
connect
enjoyed
with
it.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
All
And
right.
thank you all for coming.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.